We all know that subways can be creepy places. Running late at night with screeching trains and the occasional shadowy figure darting across the platform. Subways definitely have their fair share of eerie qualities. But sometimes, they can be a lot creepier than usual. And that was certainly the case for this group of urban explorers. In today's video, we'll take a look at the scariest sounds ever caught in abandoned subway tunnels. These recordings will have you thanking whatever deity you pray to that you never had the misfortune of running into these things yourself. Our first story comes from an explorer who decided to check out an abandoned subway tunnel in his city. He had heard rumors about the tunnel for years and finally decided to see if there was any truth to the stories. As he descended into the tunnel, he began to hear some strange sounds. At first, it was just the sound of dripping water, but then he began to hear what sounded like whispers. He couldn't make out the words, but it was clear that someone or something was trying to communicate with him. He continued on and the whispers became louder. Then he saw Italiano, a ghostly white figure standing in the darkness. The being didn't seem to acknowledge him at first, but then it turned and let out a blood-curdling scream. He froze in fear as the creature approached. It was tall and thin, with long white arms that seemed to stretch forever. Its face was pale and gaunt, and its eyes were wide and soulless. And then it started to speak. "Help me," it rasped. "Help me find my way out." He stumbled back in terror, but the creature lunged at him. He screamed and ran, desperate to escape the clutches of the ghastly specter. He didn't stop running until he reached the surface, gasping for breath as he emerged from the tunnel. As he looked back, he could see the creature standing at the entrance, its arms outstretched as if begging for help. He knew he had to get away from there as fast as possible, so he didn't stop running until he was far away from the creepy subway tunnel. Another user had a similar experience when he was exploring an abandoned subway station. He had heard reports of strange activity in the area and thought that maybe it was all just an elaborate hoax. But after hearing the chilling sounds for himself, he wasn't so sure. He had been walking through the deserted station when he heard a loud bang, followed by what sounded like footsteps. At first he thought it was just his imagination, but then he heard it again. This time, it was closer. He turned around and saw a dark, hulking shape standing in the shadows. The being was tall and muscular, and it seemed to be made out of darkness itself. He tried to call out to it, but his voice sounded weak and pathetic compared to the creature's booming laughter. It took a menacing step forward, and he turned and ran, not stopping until he reached the safety of the street above. Even though neither of these explorers were hurt, they both walked away from the experience shaken and unsure of what exactly they had seen. Some people might say that they were just victims of overactive imaginations, but others believe that there really are malevolent spirits that haunt these abandoned places. Of course, there's no concrete evidence to support either claim, but one thing is for sure. These are not the only creepy sounds that have ever been heard in abandoned subway tunnels. In fact, there are countless stories of people hearing disembodied voices, footsteps, and even screams in these forsaken places. One theory to explain these phenomena is that the tunnels and stations act as a kind of acoustic chamber, which can cause sounds to reverberate and echo for long periods of time. This would explain why people often report hearing echoes of voices or footsteps, since sound waves can travel through the tunnels and be picked up by sensitive microphones or ears. However, this theory doesn't account for the more disturbing sounds that have been reported, such as screams and disembodied voices. Some people believe that these sounds are actually the voices of the spirits of those who have died in the tunnels, either from accidents or foul play. Proponents of this theory point to the many unexplained deaths that have occurred in subway systems throughout history, including cases of people falling onto the tracks and being electrocuted, as well as instances of passengers being stabbed or shot by deranged individuals. They argue that the spirits of these poor souls are trapped in the tunnels and are unable to move on because of the trauma or violence that they experienced before their deaths. There are also a number of urban legends surrounding subways that involve malevolent spirits or otherworldly beings. In some stories, these entities are said to dwell in the tunnels and feed off the fear and despair of those who enter their domain. Others claim that certain subway lines are portals to other dimensions, or that the tunnels themselves are haunted by ghosts. While there's no evidence to support these claims, they make for interesting fodder for horror stories and campfire tales. But perhaps the most unsettling possibility is that the creepy sounds are simply the result of a phenomenon known as This is the tendency of the human brain to perceive meaningful patterns in otherwise random or meaningless data. For example, People often report seeing faces in clouds, trees, or rocks, even though there's no actual face there. Similarly, the sounds that have been recorded in abandoned subway tunnels could be interpreted by our brains as voices, footsteps, or screams, even though they're not actually there. This theory is supported by the fact that people have reported hearing different things in the same tunnels. Some have heard disembodied voices, while others have heard music, laughter, or even crying. Pareidolia could explain why some people have had terrifying experiences in abandoned subway tunnels, while others have not. It is possible that those who are more prone to seeing or hearing things that are actually there are more likely to have negative or disturbing experiences. In these places, whatever the cause, there's no denying that the subway tunnels can be a source of great fear and fascination. For many people, the idea of exploring these abandoned places is simply too daunting to contemplate. But for a select few, the allure of the unknown is simply too strong to resist. So the next time you're riding the subway, take a moment to appreciate the eerie silence of the tunnels. You never know what you might hear if you listen closely enough. Now, it's time to make your voice heard. Which of these stories was the most terrifying to you? And do you have any personal experiences with hearing creepy sounds in abandoned places? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more spin-chilling content. If you want to learn more about the darker side of urban exploration, be sure to check out our videos on the most dangerous places to explore. These abandoned locations are full of deadly traps and hazardous materials, but that doesn't stop curious explorers from venturing inside. From toxic wastelands to crumbling buildings, we'll take you on a tour of the most perilous places that humans have ever set foot in. You'll meet reckless thrill seekers who risk their lives for the ultimate adrenaline rush, and learn about the environmental hazards that threaten to destroy our planet. So if you think you're fearless, test your limits and explore the most dangerous places in the world. Just remember, don't touch anything, don't breathe, and don't look back.